Now, I'll tell you how I launched a Meta ad in just 7 days. In just 2 months, I was able to reach a turnover of $250,000 with an ad spend at $10,000. And I'll tell you step by step how I did it all so you can replicate it. Let's go. The niche is construction. Before me, the ads weren't getting results. The leads were quite expensive, poorly qualified, and didn't convert well into sales. The goal was to build a funnel, make the leads cheaper, and scale to several states. I usually start new projects by developing a strategy. It includes goals and objectives, a brief description of the target audience, competitors, targeted advertising settings, a description of forms, landing pages, and video scripts. In some projects, I also create a description of the sales funnel so that the sales department works in sync with the marketing department and effectively closes the leads we provide. We create a board on Miro where we gather all the information with scripts and all the landing pages. Creatives, a detailed description of how analytics are set up and work, what the ad creatives and lead forms look like, general information on the media plan, and week to week results. What did I do in the first week? I launched several landing pages and set up ad campaigns. I first tested the campaigns on a lead form, like the one on the screen now. Then I launched several ad campaigns to a landing page. This is what it looked like at first. It was the client's landing page, which I was refining, but I'd already launched an ad campaign for it. While it was under review, I was working on the landing page. Then we enriched it with information, video clips, bonuses for submitting a request, a clearer call to action, and so on. In parallel, I tested several funnels for messages in Messenger, WhatsApp, and Instagram messages. A separate ad campaign for calls. The cheapest leads came from the call ad campaign. One lead cost a few dollars. The most expensive leads came to the landing page. There, the cost per lead could reach up to $100. On average, leads cost around $30 to $50. Some weeks it was 70 when I was running more expensive funnels, like a landing page, for example. Let's talk a bit more about the ad campaign structure. I ran interest based campaigns targeting a few different segments. The first was general contractors. We're interested in large construction firms that we can subcontract for, so we can do the siding, roofing, and so on for their clients. The second segment was owners of large businesses, organizations, and so on who own multiple properties. Separately, I launched B2C ad campaigns. These targeted various property owners, owners of private homes with an area of over 2 to 3,000 square feet, who are interested in renovations. And separately, I launched ad campaigns to a lookalike audience based on the client's customer list, which had about 300 people who had already ordered roofing and siding. I built a lookalike from them, and in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey, I found an audience of about 3 to 400,000 people. I built the landing pages on Tilda. I tested a few approaches for the B2B segment, launching a landing page dedicated to silicone roof coating. I used corresponding video creatives on that page. I also tested a separate landing page on the B2C audience, which was focused on shingle roofs. I usually build my landing pages on Tilda. I either entrust this to the designer I work with, or sometimes I build them myself. I also tested several versions of lead forms. Here's one example. The lead form has a brief description, a how it works section, a description of the services we provide, and reviews. Then we ask a few qualifying questions. What type of property does the client have? Is it an office, retail, a warehouse, or something else? Preferred contact method, and they can enter a zip code. And then I tested adding or periodically removing options to understand how the lead form performs better or worse with certain options. I usually create the design for the lead form in Canva. I include all the main information about the project here, the cost, key benefits, reviews, and a lead magnet. What creatives did I use for this project? Mostly video. I hardly used any static images. Video works much better. Here we used a very simple approach. We took the creatives the client already had and re edited them, or we used stock footage. This is roughly what it looked like: water shield to protect it from any penetration everywhere, where we also placed these same creatives on the landing page. Once the ad campaign was launched, the analytics were set up, and data started flowing through Make to the CRM system and back from the CRM to Meta via the Facebook Conversions API. I schedule a meeting with a meta manager. In that meeting, I verify that all the analytics are working, and the managers on Meta side, who handle analytics, make any necessary changes. Here's an example of the final email from the Meta manager confirming that the analytics are set up and working correctly. From this place, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay, great. The whole process takes from 1 to several days, so I'll just show you and fast forward how it all happens. I set up the analytics using Make. I connect the Facebook ads account with the CRM system through Make, and then from the CRM, I send data about the status of different deals back via the Facebook Conversions API. So the process is we get leads, send them through Make to the CRM system. In the CRM, the sales department moves these deals through the pipeline stages. For example, they move a deal to the qualification stage, then from qualification to invoice sent, and finally to sale. After a lead reaches a certain stage, it's automatically sent back to Meta, so our ad campaign can be optimized. It's very important to do this at the very beginning of the project. The sooner we set this up, the faster the ad campaigns will start optimizing for qualified leads and sales. Now, let's set up an ad campaign together. We'll do it step by step so you can replicate it. To launch a new ad campaign, you need to click the big green Create button. For demonstration purposes, I'll now duplicate one of my ad campaigns that already has the settings configured so we can immediately see what's included. I usually number new ad campaigns. I add a number, for example, 1.1 for the campaign, 1.2 for the ad set, and so on. 1.2.1 for the ad. This helps with analytics later on to understand if there are many campaigns, ad sets, and ads. It helps to understand which combination performs best. Next, you specify the project name, maybe the product or the business line, so you don't get confused. For example, in this project, we have coding and we also have shingles, shingle roofs. We specify that here too. You can specify the region if it's different. For example, we work in the US and Europe. It's better to specify it so you can specify in the analytics which region is performing best. Then I usually specify the landing page. It could be a lead form or an LP, a landing page. LF is lead form. Next, I specify the targeting. It could be a lookalike audience or it could be interests. If it's interests, then we write out which specific interests. I leave all other settings on default auction, leads. For the budget, I specify ad set because I want to manage the ad campaign at the budget level of the ad set, not the entire ad campaign. I don't want Meta to automatically distribute the budget. I want to set it myself. Here, we leave the settings on default. If you're dealing with any sensitive niches, selling real estate, financial services, then you need to specify that category here, and that'll impose certain restrictions on your ads. I'll skip that here. In the ad sets, I do the same thing. I specify the number, the project name, and describe my targeting in more detail. Here, I specify either the website or the lead form or messengers. In this case, we'll use a lead form as an example. I select one of the pages. Then I have to choose the goal for the ad campaign. Here, we'll use maximize number of leads. For the first week, I usually use this one. Starting from the second week, I launch campaigns for qualified leads. Once we've accumulated enough data in the CRM system, and Meta can optimize not just for leads, but for quality leads that have gone through qualification and reached a certain stage in the CRM funnel. In this case, we'll choose maximize number of leads for the first week. I set a cost per result goal. At the very beginning of a project, I usually leave this blank to get a general idea of the price Meta plans to attract leads at for different scenarios, like B2C, B2B, a landing page, or a lead form, since they can all have different lead costs. Next, I typically use the dynamic creative option. I'll explain why later. We set the daily budget. It's interesting that the daily budget works in a rather strange, unpredictable way, but there is a pattern. I usually set it somewhere around $25. We leave the other settings on default. That's the start date and the end date of the ad campaign, which we don't set. We must limit the audience by geography. In this case, we're using 3 states in the United States: Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And we always add negative targeting if we see there might be an overlap. And be careful and pay close attention to this next option. Meta really likes to add it when you copy ad campaigns, and you might accidentally miss it. And then the ad will be shown not only to people who are in these regions, but also to those who are somehow interested in these regions. If you accidentally selected, there will be a check mark here. Reach more people likely to respond. It's better to uncheck it. Next, if necessary, we further limit by age, gender, and interests. I usually limit the age. If we are targeting by interests, we must specify the relevant interests for our niche. You can see all of them in the drop down list. I most often use these options in the demographics section. In this case, we are interested in people who are in construction, so I will search here by job titles, by company names. I'll put this into a separate targeting group. And I'll launch separate ad campaigns for interests from the second category. They're broader, less precise. I like them less, but for testing, it's better to use them as well, but put them in a separate group or a separate campaign. Ad campaigns that you will launch for lookalike and retargeting campaigns are set up in the custom audience section. Here, you specify the audience that you created in advance in the audiences section. In this case, I have several audiences. This is a lookalike 1% based on my database of entrepreneurs. And there are several lookalikes based on the client base. We export a small sample from the CRM system. For example, in this project, I selected 300 clients who received an estimate and possibly made a purchase. I had 300 such clients. Based on them, I was able to build an audience of several hundred thousand people, similar to those who have already made a purchase from us or received an estimate from us. You can also test with separate groups or separate campaigns. The audiences are wider. For example, choose simply age, location, even without interests and without sound likes. See how this advertising campaign will work while choosing Advantage Plus. Next, you create a lead form, click the Create Form button, and fill out the template that is provided to you. In the advertising account itself, right here, you can do it in advance, as I usually do, in the corresponding section. It's located in All Tools Instant Forms. Here, you create a form, fill it with a picture and text. Add a description of how it works, the services or products you offer. Reviews, bonus after submitting an application, indicate infectious issues. Add a privacy policy and text for the success page. After you have created a lead form with two options, here I am now shown only one of them. This is an email confirmation of the application and an SMS confirmation of the application. I often use the SMS confirmation option because it will reduce the number of leads with invalid numbers. To submit a request, the user will need to receive an SMS and enter it in our form. Then the sales department will be able to get through to it. The same can be specified for email addresses. The last point is quite important. Here you specify URL parameters that will be further used in analytics so that you can understand which lead came from which company, ad group, ad, or landing page. This is what your link will look like. You can copy it, or I can send you this setting in the comments. After that, click Publish, and your ad will be submitted for moderation. Moderation usually takes up to 24 hours, but most often it goes through. In about an hour, 3. I strongly recommend setting up a schedule for launching a new advertising campaign from the next day. That is, not right now, but changing it here, choosing tomorrow's date so that the meta. After moderation is completed, I will not try to quickly use up your entire daily budget that you indicated. Thus, we achieved a stable flow of leads and final figures. $260,000, turnover, $10,000, monthly budget. If you want the same launch, just repeat these steps. There will be a detailed checklist in the video description. If you want me to do and set everything up for you, just write to me on Telegram or Instagram. The link will be in the description of this video. Scan the QR code on the screen.